Hey there, curious minds. Ever felt like you're trying to navigate your personal growth, or maybe just, daily ethical stuff, with a map that feels a little, well, out of date? Or perhaps you've bumped into those invisible walls inside yourself, those blockages that kind of keep you from really stepping into who you want to be.
A profoundly human experience, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
in a world that feels like it's evolving so fast, almost faster than we can keep up sometimes.
Yeah,
Understanding the bedrock principles guiding us, our virtues, and maybe just as importantly, the subtle ways those virtues can get distorted, their shadows is, well, it's more critical than ever.
absolutely. So today we're taking a deep dive into this fascinating architecture of virtues. We're going to explore not just the shining ideals we all sort of aspire to, but also their often overlooked darker sides. And here's where it gets really compelling for me. Our sources show us a pretty cutting-edge way to diagnose those personal growth blockages we mentioned, using an AI, believe it or not, to actually help design a blueprint for transforming them.
Yeah, the sources today are incredibly rich. They really span everything from ancient philosophical wisdom, cross-cultural ethical frameworks,
Mhm.
all the way to modern psychology and even these cutting-edge AI diagnostics. It offers a truly unique kind of integrated perspective on human flourishing and the whole journey of self-mastery.
So our mission for you, the listener, is to give you a powerful new framework. Think of it maybe as an upgraded operating system for understanding your own values, for spotting your hidden limitations, and actively, engineering your path toward a more integrated, more purposeful self. Ready? Okay, let's unpack this.
Mapping the terrain of virtue, a navigational system for human flourishing.
Right, let's start with the foundations. When most of us hear virtues, we often think of those timeless concepts, don't we? Our sources sweep across these beautifully, touching on the classic cardinal virtues, things like prudence, justice, courage, temperance, the four pillars from thinkers like Plato. Then you've got the theological virtues, faith, hope, and charity, or love, which add that spiritual dimension, that orientation towards something bigger.
And what's truly illuminating, I think, is how all these different traditions, whether Greek, Buddhist, Confucian, others, they all kind of converge on this core idea of human flourishing, eudaimonia.
Yeah.
They're basically asking, what makes a good life? What makes a good person? But crucially, our sources don't just stop there. They really expand our understanding, highlighting categories you might not immediately think of, like compassion and benevolence, what we could maybe call the heart virtues.
Yes, these are the ones centered on connection, right? Unconditional goodwill love, agape, active empathy, real compassion, giving beyond just obligation, generosity, and even that really profound act of giving second chances, forgiveness, or mercy. And then there are the transcendence and spiritual virtues, the beyond self ones. These tap into our capacity to connect with something larger. Things like awe, harmony, even playfulness, which kind of invites wonder and renewal.
It broadens the picture considerably, yeah. But the real challenge then becomes, how do we make sense of such a, well, vast array of virtues in a way that's actually practical for our complex lives today? And this is where the concept of a virtue compass system comes in. Our sources describe it not just as a list, but as a 13-point archetypal map. It actually orients these virtues within a symbolic compass structure. It allows you to navigate virtue itself as if it were a territory, helping you understand where you are, where you might be heading, and maybe what areas you're neglecting. It's like a dynamic ethical GPS.
I love that image in ethical GPS. It really turns these abstract ideals into something actionable, doesn't it? Let's maybe look at a few points on this compass just to see how it works and how it brings in some really forward-looking ideas. All right, so for instance, northeast is wisdom. Here, alongside the traditional virtues like prudence and discernment, we find these emergent virtues popping up like systems thinking, seeing the complex interconnections, and ethical foresight, which is about anticipating the moral fallout of our actions, especially with new tech.
Precisely. And if we shift over east to compassion, it pushes beyond just simple love and empathy. It starts to include radical empathy, extending our understanding across cultures, species, ecosystems, maybe even to AI. And post-human compassion, which considers the well-being of future intelligences, future forms of life. I mean, these are virtues we desperately need now.
Totally. And then southeast is creativity. Here, imagination and play aren't just, fun side activities. They expand into things like regenerative design, creating systems that actually restore and sustain themselves. And speculative imagination, the power to envision radically different, hopefully better futures. And finally, down at South, we find hope. This moves beyond simple faith or optimism to encompass future-oriented responsibility and that incredibly vital good ancestor ethic, which basically asks, what legacy are we leaving for people we'll never even meet?
What's so powerful about this compass, I think, is how it integrates these emergent virtues. It connects the wisdom of the past with the really unprecedented challenges of right now and the future. Things like AI ethics, climate change, global interconnection. It's a call to consider not just the virtues that got us here, but the ones we urgently need to cultivate moving forward.
So as you're listening to this, what stands out to you? What new virtues do you maybe feel are emerging in our world? Perhaps in response to challenges we're only just starting to grasp. It really shifts our thinking, doesn't it? From just having virtues to actively evolving them.
Stepping into the shadows,
Yeah.
understanding virtue's dark side.
Okay, now here's where, for me, it gets really interesting. To fully grasp virtues, we absolutely have to confront their distortions too. What our sources brilliantly call shadow virtues. It's like a geographical map needs to show the swamps and cliffs, right? A virtue map needs to highlight the pitfalls, the places where even our best intentions can go subtly or sometimes dramatically wrong.
Exactly. And this isn't just about labeling things as bad. It's a really comprehensive taxonomy of these shadow virtues. And it's mapped to that same 13-point compass, covering things like excess, deficiency, counterfeits, misapplied context, and even systemic digital failure modes. It's really designed as a diagnostic tool, helping us see how virtues can be twisted or even weaponized, both within ourselves and, in our collective systems.
Let's unpack a few examples, because this is incredibly insightful stuff. Take integrity, north, fundamentally about truth, honesty. Its excess isn't more honesty, it turns into dogmatism, or that brutal honesty that just causes harm. A deficiency is obvious. Deceit, self-deception. A counterfeit. That's virtue signaling, performing integrity for social points. And in the systemic digital world, it shows up as things like surveillance moralism or deep fake righteousness, truth manipulated for control. The antidote, they suggest, is pairing it consciously with compassion and wisdom.
Or think about courage, north-northeast, facing fear. Its excess can slip into recklessness, right? Disregarding safety, endangering others, or even what the sources call martyrdom theatrics bravery becoming a performance. The deficiency is, well, cowardice, or maybe that modern safetyism, avoiding all risk. And systemically, we see it in things like online outrage cascades that actually reward rashness over thoughtful bravery.
And my personal favorite to think about is compassion, east. Such a core virtue, care for others, but it's excess. That can look like enabling harmful behavior or pathological altruism where you just burn yourself out completely, or even emotional burnout itself. A counterfeit compassion often looks like pity used for status, or that saviorism complex where helping is more about the helper's ego. And in the systemic digital world, oh yeah, we see compassion fatigue constantly from feed toxicity, right? Just getting numb from overexposure.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? How often do we see stewardship, south-southeast, our responsibility for the world get distorted by paternalism, thinking we know best for others, or by greenwashing that superficial environmentalism, hiding damaging practices, or hope, south, becoming just naive optimism, refusing to see real challenges. Or maybe techno-solutionism, the belief that tech alone will fix everything, no need for deeper change. Understanding these shadow classes helps us spot when a good intention starts to slide into something destructive, both for us and our communities.
And it's not just about dodging the shadows, it's also about rediscovering virtues that maybe have been lost or become rare, or just undernamed in how we talk today. Our sources highlight gems like phronesis, that Greek idea of practical wisdom, knowing what to do in specific complex situations, not just abstract rules, or eutrapelia, playful wit, graceful adaptability, a kind of lightness that helps navigate difficulties. And Ubuntu, that profound African philosophy, often translated as, I am because we are. It emphasizes our deep inherent interconnectedness.
Recognizing these nuances encourages really deep critical thinking. It helps us see virtues aren't static like one-dimensional ideals, they're dynamic forces. They can be distorted, weaponized, or simply neglected. Understanding the shadow allows for self-correction and a much more robust, adaptable approach to ethical living. It lets us fine-tune our own moral compass in this constantly shifting landscape we're in.
Architecting personal growth, the AI's role in self-transformation.
Okay, so this whole discussion, it isn't just theoretical philosophy. Our sources reveal this really fascinating practical application, using what they call an architect AI to actually diagnose and help transform those personal growth blockages we talked about earlier. Imagine an AI identifying your limiting beliefs, not as flaws, not as character defects, but as systemic blockages, almost like bugs in your personal operating system.
Yeah, what's truly revolutionary here, I think, is that This AI views these limitations not as isolated problems, but as interconnected feedback loops, or what they call core scripts. So, for instance, a belief in scarcity of time and energy isn't just a random thought. It might create this looping script where feeling like there's never enough time leads you to maybe overextend yourself, which then results in unfinished projects, which constantly reinforces that original belief of scarcity. It's a cycle.
Right. Or another brilliant example they give of a core script is perfectionism paralysis. The belief that something has to be absolutely impeccably perfect before you can even start it or finish it.
Yeah.
It creates this debilitating loop. The perfectionism leads to paralysis, which means fewer things get completed, and that just reinforces a deep-seated fear of imperfection. It's such a common self-defeating cycle that keeps people stuck.
But the architect AI's role doesn't stop at just diagnosing the problem. It then proposes a really comprehensive blueprint for transformation. And this uses several powerful integrated methods. One is cognitive reframing, shifting fundamental perspectives, like moving from "I must be perfectly coherent all the time" to something more like "I am a constellation. Coherence emerges in orbit, not in trying to release myself." It's a perspective shift.
That's powerful. What else is in the blueprint?
Well, there's habit redesign, implementing specific keystone rituals, maybe like daily meditation or reflection, and crucially, completion rituals, actually celebrating the micro steps, the small wins, to give yourself that tangible sense of momentum and accomplishment.
Oh, I like that. Completion rituals. And it also mentioned emotional alchemy.
Yes, which isn't about suppressing emotions, but reframing their meaning. So guilt isn't just a negative feeling to avoid. It becomes a signal pointing to a value you've neglected. Fear isn't a wall stopping you. It's maybe a compass pointing directly towards your next growth zone. It's about working with the emotion.
Okay, so reframing thoughts, redesigning habits, reframing emotions. Anything else?
Yeah, there's also system redesign, using practical tools like feedback journaling to track progress and notice patterns, and using redundant supports, maybe visual boards, daily check-ins, things like that, to kind of offload the cognitive burden of remembering everything, frees up mental space for creativity.
Got it. And underlying all of this.
Underpinning the entire approach is this really powerful evolutionary orientation. The core principle is, my limitations are prototypes. Each one reveals the next possible evolutionary direction. This connects directly to the idea of creative evolution. You're not just passively evolving, you're actively influencing your own path. You're kind of transcending your original programming, exploring novel niches for who you could become. It's about seeing every single constraint, every blockage as raw design material.
Wow, that's a huge shift in perspective. It's not just about patching up old systems or fixing what's wrong. It's treating every constraint as design material, not as an enemy. The goal isn't just fixing, it's building new, more congruent systems for yourself. Systems that eventually make the old, limiting ones obsolete, unnecessary, allowing them to just slowly, naturally fade away. It sounds like a really active process of self-creation, much more than just self-improvement.
Broader implications, virtues in a trans-evolutionary world.
So, okay, what does all this mean when we zoom out? Look at the bigger picture. Our sources touch on this pretty profound pentatonic framework, which they metaphorically call a five-headed beast. Not meant to sound scary, apparently, but more to emphasize its multifaceted power. It seems to combine things like radical transformation, rebellion against outdated norms, the clarity of the mystic, the rigorous edge of science, and the hand of personalism, valuing the individual experience, all seen to the lens of systems thinking. It's a complex way to view how we shape the world.
Yeah, it's a complex framework, but it profoundly grounds us in this core idea. Reality is not found, but forged. It's not something we just passively discover out there. It's an active process. It emerges from courageous conviction coupled with deliberate action. As our sources state it so powerfully, the world is not found, it is made in the heat between conviction and act. Meaning our deepest beliefs, when we actually find the courage to embody them, they literally sculpt the world around us.
That's such a powerful act of thought.
Yeah.
It implies our deepest convictions, when married with imagination and courage, aren't just internal feelings. They are the actual tools we use to sculpt not just our personal lives, but the fabric of society, our shared future. The sources really drive this home. Imagination is not escape. It is blueprint. It's not fantasy. It's the design document for what could be next.
Yep.
And even more strikingly, action is the only sincere form of belief. It boils down to embodying what you claim to believe, actually making it real through doing.
And if we connect this to those ideas of transhumanism and transevolution, it's about making conscious ethical choices to pursue different evolutionary directions. It means potentially going beyond current human limitations, physically, cognitively, emotionally, but importantly, not just for some elite few. The vision here is more like a toolkit for collective liberation, for sustainable existence for everyone. And this, in turn, feeds right back into that powerful ethic of becoming a good ancestor, leaving a legacy that future generations can look back on with pride and, crucially, one that provides them with an expanded set of possibilities, maybe greater freedom than we have now.
Wow. We've covered a remarkable amount of ground today, haven't we? From the ancient roots of virtue, the whole idea of a virtue compass, to diving deep into those necessary shadows that define our moral landscape, and even exploring how something like an architect AI could offer a blueprint for personal evolution, turning limitations from flaws into actual design material for our future selves.
It really does remind us that understanding our virtues, and yes, their distortions, isn't just some intellectual exercise, is it? It's a vital, truly actionable toolkit for self-awareness, for continuous personal growth, and for actively helping to shape the future, both for ourselves and hopefully for the generations yet to come. It encourages us to constantly look for those emergent possibilities hidden within every constraint.
So here's a provocative thought for you, the listener, to maybe chew on. As you navigate your own life, which shadow virtue are you perhaps ready to bring into the light and consciously transform within yourself? And maybe what new emergent virtue will you choose to cultivate? Perhaps something like that radical empathy or ethical foresight we talked about. How will you work towards becoming a truly good ancestor in this incredibly complex, constantly evolving reality we share? We really hope this deep dive helps you recalibrate and navigate your own internal compass.
Keep asking those questions, keep seeking those insights, and remember, your convictions, when paired with action, they really do actively forge your reality.